Hello everyone, in this tutorial I'd like to introduce you to a new member of Adeko tool family, namely PartCam, the CAD or drawing functionality of AdekoCam. It is also AdekoCam's internal CAD simulator. PartCam is a CAD-CAM application working hand in hand with AdekoCam. It provides free drawing functionality as well as automatic and parametric entity generation via stackable macros. Let me introduce you its sections on the screen first. As a generic CAD application, PartCam has free drawing functionality as you see on the right with commonly used drawing and editing functions. As expected, it has point, snap and measurement capabilities as well as CAM functions such as machining setup and toolpath generation. Some entities in the 3D view are drawn by using these functions. We will visit this section in another tutorial. Especially one of my favorites, the Smart Copy functionality allows users to create quite interesting designs without complex operations. It is similar to redo command in many other applications, but here in PartCam it has a bit more functionality compared to them, hence the name. Part Explorer on the left is the list of parts currently existing in the project. You can populate this list by creating a new empty part or by importing a DXF or a DWG as new part. An existing part can also be copy-pasted. The currently selected part is automatically loaded to the 3D view as you can see in the middle of the screen. The 3D view is the basic CAD environment you would spend time designing parts. On the bottom left is the Applied Macros section, which lists all the macros used in the selected part, if any. As an example, in this panel, two macros are used. One creates the side holes on the right and the other one generates the grooves on the front face. In order to add another macro, I need to bring the macro applicator by clicking on this plus button. Let me first select a face to work on. From now on, anything I or a macro draws will be on this plane. Macro applicator lists macros and their parameters. The image here shows macro parameters and their values are adjusted here in this list. Reference is the origin and can be used to move generated entities around edges and corners for convenience. Here in my database I have slots, shapes, self-handles, notches, fillet and chamfer versions of them, various hole groups with different parameterizations, hinge holes, a variety of groove sets, frames and some connectors. Let me create a frame with rounded corners. I'd like all the distances from the edges to be 50 mm and let's set the corner radius to 50 for all the corners. The depth of the feature is to be 5 mm. Adding this macro as a new macro and voila. The geometry is generated as you can see. You can add as many macros as you wish like this. One can use macros to create automatic entities without actually drawing them, say using the tools on the right. All you have to do is to describe what you want by selecting a macro from the macro database and enter desired parameters. The entities are automatically and parametrically generated by the macro. Here, automatic means the entities are not drawn manually but are spawned by the macro and are under the control of the macro. And parametrically means that if part dimensions change, the part macros are rerun to regenerate entities from scratch such that part dimension change is always accounted for. This, however, has a downside. Next time I want to produce this specific model of panel, I will need to call all these macros again with their specific parameters, and it will take some time to do, as the right parameterization can only be achieved with some trial and error naturally. This brings me to one of the best aspects of PartCam. PartCam has an interesting feature called stackable macros. Primitive macros can also be merged together to form super macros, which can be used effectively as a single macro later. Any combination is also possible. Super macros with other super macros or super macros with primitive macros. Any macro list can be stacked into a new super macro for future reuse. reuse. In this way, complex parts can be programmed without writing a single line of code and easily reused. Let's see this in practice. Assume we would like to produce a door model on the screen. By quickly analyzing how these surface features can be achieved, I would run a 120-degree V-shaped tool over here and another one, probably with narrower angle here. Let's say 90 degrees. Of course, this region must be pocketed out. I will first use the free drawing tools and then macros to build precisely the same door model. Let's first create the outer sharp corner frame. Click the offset button and offsetting the part shape by 50 mm. Double clicking on the entity and assigning sunken layer to it. Let's quickly generate NC code and simulate the parts so we see that everything is as we expected. Clicking on the G-code generation button and seeing that the simulation tab on the left changes to green color, going to the simulation tab, and the simulation is right there as we expected. A V-shaped tool creating a sharp cornered frame. Let's get back to the design area. Toolpath button turns on and off toolpaths, if any. It overlays the toolpath on the drawing area. Let's do now the pocketed out area. Our pocketed area would start from here, so I create a rectangle from the center of the V-shaped tool. I'd like the pocketed area to be 40 mm thick, so I will offset this rectangle inward by 40 mm. Now I select these two rectangles and assign the same layer to both of them, namely pocket and the depth to 8 mm. Pocket operation can handle nested pockets, as you will see in a moment. Let's create G-code and check the simulation once again. Things look okay. Getting back to the drawing area and now creating another rectangle for creating the inner wall. This rectangle will be the same as the one we have here, so I just need to draw a rectangle over it. Double clicking on the entity and assigning layer G_V15 and a depth of 8 mm. Let's check the result. Voila, this is the door model we wanted to create. Now let's create precisely the same door model, but this time using the stackable macros. I start a new part and we'll work on it. We will leave the free drawing buttons alone and focus on macros. We will create 4 rectangles with correct parameters, that's all. Invoke the macro applicator and choose rectangular frame macro from frames macro group and set the parameters for the outer sunken frame. That is 50 mm from the edges and the layer name is to be sunken. Add the macro. Add a second and third macros for both of the pocket rectangles, one 58 mm and the other one 98 mm away from the edges of the part, and the layer name is to be pocket. Now we need to add the last macro, again a rectangle, 98 mm offset from the edge of the part, and the layer name is G_V15. Our model is now complete. Let's verify this by seeing the simulation result. Voila, exactly the same door model. I will now stack these macros and merge them into a single super macro so that I won't have to add 4 macros every time I want to reproduce this specific door model. All I need to do is to select all the macros I want to stack up and click on this plus button. But before, let's arrange the 3D view, as this view will be the representative image of the super macro. Naming the super macro as classic 1, 2, 3 or anything like that, and accepting will do the job. Let's create a new part now and reuse this super macro. All the macros are of course parametric, such that they follow panel dimensions. Let's change the panel dimensions and observe that the entities follow. This way you can design your own part models and manufacture them in any dimension you want easily by reusing your macros. In this tutorial, we got to know PartCam, a new CAD/CAM tool from Adeko Technologies. We saw its basic user interface and its stackable macro feature for creating complex panel designs without programming. Thanks for your attention.